One of the things that got me to where I was the practitioner program that you mentioned. So if you're even thinking about, where do I start? What if I'm not even what if my phone's not even ringing? Where do you start? You start with where you are. Because as a Chinese medical practitioner, it's based on Taoism. And Taoism is about slowing it down enough to get connected with yourself. It's really hard to do in this world. So the simplest way, I'm going to give you some homework if you choose to, especially in this area, is to go camping. Because hopefully your cell phone won't work. But more importantly, you go to bed when the moon is rising, because there is an artificial light that says we're supposed to be up working. You are more in tune with the nature, the sounds, which allows you to, the information is informing you about yourself. So that's the fastest way to get there. But how do you do that in your day-to-day? How do you find the stillness to be able to really hear that internal call? That's the art. I'm so glad mindfulness and meditation has been popular lately, because sometimes we have to empty, we have to remove first. It gets conflicting, some of the messages. Empty your mind, fill your heart, empty your stomach, but fill it. But I really believe that in some ways the spring is about renewal. The spring is about growth. I mean, you can feel the energy. It's not quite summer, or it's fully young, where you have full fire at your back. But this energy, it's waking up from the stillness of winter, noticing that something is birthing through. You have a choice every moment when you get up on how you're going to be, how you're going to feel. Do I want to believe everything I'm thinking and feeling? If I'm feeling something, what part of me? Was that my 7-year-old self that didn't get picked up from school? Is it the college roommate issue that didn't pay me back? What part of me is having this experience? Gosh, I only hope for us to have an integrative, holistic experience. But unfortunately, in the medical world, we compartmentalize. So I wanted to start, just for me, with some definitions, because I was thinking about courage. And in Chinese medicine, it relates to the gallbladder. But we know from the lion, it has to do with the heart. So there's different aspects of ourselves. But courage, as a reminder for all of us, is the ability to do something that frightens you. And it's also about strength in the face of grief. But let's look at the word encourage. So when you're encouraging, you're giving support, you're giving confidence, you're giving hope to someone. You're helping stimulate an activity, a state, or view to unfold and develop within them. But then let's look at discourage, because we don't do that to others in our life that we love. It's causing someone to lose confidence or enthusiasm. You're preventing them by showing disapproval, or you're creating difficulties, even on a subconscious level. So the first thing I always say is, why don't we start with ourselves? The interview to my undergrad was, you have 3 minutes to tell me how you're going to change the world. And the only thing that came up was, start with yourself. That's what I have control of. Recognizing from the universe how expansive it is, that the only things that I might have control over are what am I broadcasting? What am I emitting for people to receive? And am I conscious of that? So when you don't know where to start, how do you assess that? You look at the areas of your life, and it's easy to look at my mind, my physical self, my spiritual self, but look at your social self, your health, your financial, your sexual health, all relations. Everything is about relationships. So when you scan that, just for a moment, assess how you're doing. Because it actually is a number. There's a frequency. So we get to run labs. Your liver is functioning at this, your doctor gives you a number, right? The color of the rainbow is a frequency, it's a number. That's why the liver is vibrating at a brownish color and your spleen's vibrating at a greenish color. So when it comes down to, if you add up the total sum of what your number is, how are you vibrating? How are you moving through the world? I want you to assess the area that you need to connect with. Because when you don't view your body, when your life as a holistic entity, and you compartmentalize, we're cutting off a part, and we call that drainage, leakage. And when you start to connect with every part of yourself and put attention on the one area that needs you to be madly in love with, you start to move through the world as one. Part of the process of becoming, for me, has been a personal reconciliation on how I see myself and how the world sees me as oneness. Because having this internal life, how can I have this transparency? How can I show the most vulnerable places? How do I find the courage? How do I find the courage to just be open to, these are the places that I don't want to show? No more hiding. So, Napoleon, who we all know, courage isn't having the strength to go on, it's going on when you don't have the strength. So, I want to bring in a little bit of Chinese medicine, if that's okay with you this morning, because how I understand the body, and some of you, is that each area of our body has meridians and different access points. And when you don't know where to start, the beautiful part is every centimeter, millimeter, and with science and technology, it gets really small with atoms and electrons, but every point on the human body has information about your physical state of being, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And it's such poetry, the spiritual aspect of Chinese medicine. So I want to share a few things because it's really amazing to look at things in a different perspective. So if I can offer you anything this morning, I just want you to have a different perspective on what is this? This temple, this machine, this intelligence. What operating system am I really moving from? So this point here at the top of the head, there's one point. And take your finger if you want to touch it. And it's not really at the top, it's that little bit of a divot. You guys feel that? Okay, that's called Bahui, do 20. This is the point that connects all things to everything, you to everything else in the planet. So when we stick a needle in there, it looks like a little antenna. So as the name implies, it's the convergence of 100 meetings. And in fact, we were taught that depending on what I needle it for, it can treat 1,000 different things. So this point is about being able to accommodate. Heaven is about change, while at the same time, I'm also accommodating change. And that you are able to do it from a centered place of balance. So I don't want to get into all the different meridians, but when you have this point here, there's meridians that go deep within. This one actually goes to the eyes for the vision and to the center of the heart, which is the conception vessel. And then it goes all the way down to the only point on the bottom of the feet, which is the kidney, which is about rooting. So think about this. We are planted on the earth, rooted in our values and what we know is truth. It comes up to the center point, right in the middle, to where we are rooted. Think of it as heart energy. And then it goes all the way up for you to recognize the connection to everything else that is. So, when do we needle this point? So, it's one of those ideas when this patient must have courage. You must treat this with that they've lost their will. They've lost their vision for themselves. They don't feel grounded. So when thoughts and expression is coming up, something is stopping. It's almost like there's a little piece of tape up there. In Chinese medicine, what the Tao informs us is that every thought, every feeling, every function is connected to the rhythms and the metaphors of nature. So micro, macro, Rev D talks about that a lot, right? So the will to live here is where you pay homage. This is why we say in Chinese medicine, we burn the incense here, right? So we actually put moxa on the skin here, because that's the place where our hands come to pray. And here in this moment is the shelter of your own altar. So it's an internal trajectory. So in Chinese medicine, when you're coming up, everything starts from within. So this is why when we find stillness, the balance of yin and yang, yin is the stillness. When you're able to find the stillness, so much to know that what is coming through me physically moves you with every cell as an integrative whole. And can you improve the silence with your broadcast as so much as the vibration from the sound of your voice? So I'll give you one more, because I don't want this, there's so many to choose from, but let's choose a gallbladder point, because gallbladder in Chinese medicine rules courage. So gallbladder and liver, they're best friends, and they are the two paired organs for the spring. So right now, you want to be loving up your liver and your gallbladder. Liver gives you the ability for vision. Gallbladder gives you the courage to follow that vision. That's a key point I want you to get. So, for instance, I'll give you gallbladder 43. It's called Valiant Stream. We needle this point when a person is thirsty for growth, thirsty for birth. It can be very powerful when a person is inflexible and they're lacking courage. Remember, I've talked about the bamboo. You know how strong the bamboo is in the ground, how rooted it is? That's how you are with your values. But if you look at the top, it does sway. It has that flexibility to go with life. So part of the process is, what are your values? Have you asked yourself that in the last 6 months? So you know, if you know that intention, you know what to put your attention on. So there are 3 influences in seeing. I want to talk about the yin and yang aspect of courage. But before I do that, on a physical level, we have sight. At night, we have our dreams. And on a psychic level, we have vision and we have insight. Many aspects of seeing. Things that we see, especially in the night, when we're so still that we actually can hear, ourselves, our God. Some people say, I don't know why I'm getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I just suddenly wake up. Because that's the only time that you can actually get that stillness to really hear, to really listen. So, in chapter 8 of the Su Wen, the gallbladder is the administrator of justice. Decision-making originates from your gallbladder. Have you ever heard that phrase, the gall of her? The courage, right? So this means that your gallbladder is responsible for making decisions, your capacity to make decisions. I mean, you depend on your gallbladder for all of your decisions. Now remember, just as a side note, in this society, some people get their gallbladder removed, but you still have the energetics of the gallbladder, so that's good news. So our capacity to make a decision is rooted in the functioning, the metaphorical function of the gallbladder, okay? In our gallbladder, we produce bile for digestion, right? Especially to handle the fats. So the flip side, the flip side of courage is fear. And I want to talk about this. This is kind of the main part of my talk. Because I believe that there are energies, there are people that I want to redefine our definition of love and how to be in each other's life on the personal and the collective. So think about this. So the good news is that there are personal fears and there are social fears, and I believe that this has been learned behavior, conditioning. So the warriors in your life, there's people that go around with cyclical thinking, and it's a way that they love because they're concerned. I wrote some phrases down I wanted to read. Be careful, you might get hurt. Be careful, you don't know what could happen. Be careful, they might reject you. They might forget you. They might hate you. Are you sure you want to do that? You wouldn't like that. So it's awkward in social situations because these little phrases, these little statements that we say to ourselves or other people because we care about them is really blocking. It's kind of slowly, maybe it's a projection of fear for them, but it's seeping. It's a zap. In some sense, worrying is a meditation. Maybe we could meditate on something else. I think the stakes are high for us to be mindful of what we're broadcasting. How are we being in another person, but especially, energetically, yes, but especially with our words, because they are a sound bath. So let's look at another person that might be hanging out with us. I call them, let's see. It's the person who likes the easy path. And remember, I'm not saying life isn't about the path of least resistance, because you do want the path of least resistance. But it's the phrases I've heard in my life that people have said to me, take it easy. Why work so hard? Or nothing you're going to do is really going to mean anything. Like with social justice. Why get out there and march? Are you going to really make a difference anyway? And criticizing on the sidelines like this, joking at our expense, I feel that I've started to attune myself to not just the words, but the energy behind them. If we're going to obsess about anything, let it be about freedom, not about fear. Because in some sense, someone would say that to you because they love you, right? So there was one more distinction that I got this morning was, we can anticipate the warriors in our life or the couch critic. But in the end, with consciousness, we owe nothing to them, right? People are only showing us where their consciousness is at. The emotional tone, the song that they're singing, their energy, you can feel someone. The easiest way is when you go to a social event, a party. You either are drawn to certain people or you're not. So when I think about this, I said, I have to draw a line in the sand. The beautiful thing is that we have these skin, we have these bodies. We have this skin that says, I'm different than you. I'm separate from you. I love that. I love that because once you can really understand that, is that when you start with yourself and you realize the only thing that I can control is what I'm running and what I'm emitting, there's power in that. Why would we, I've been thinking about this notion of the call to courage, And why would we? Is it worth it? I guess that's my question. Is it worth it? So I want you to ask yourself right now, is there some place in your life where you're just missing the mark, where you're playing small? And maybe on the superficial level, we've all been doing this personal work, we've been going there, and you say, I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. But is there a place where you're setting an example for someone? People are watching you in so many ways, not just on social media. They are witnessing you, and I hope that they are rooting for you. Because I know that, I was thinking the other day about Capture the Flag. Have you guys ever heard of Capture the Flag? Do you guys know that there's a home base? And I think about that for our homes. Every once in a while, you do have to touch home base. We have these homes, just like this body temple is our home. It's a resting place. It's a sacred place. That's why one of the branches in Chinese medicine is feng shui. It's about decluttering. Because too many things clutter our space. It clutters our physical space, but it also clutters our mind. It clutters the cyclical thinking. So I was thinking about this idea of home base and how our home is such a sacred temple to land from how we are in the world. It's your yin time. So when you're out in the world, you've done that connection. You know yourself. You know the places in which then when you walk out of that door every day, you show up your ministry to the world. So the idea of courage, the call to courage for me is, Rev D talks about this all the time, the world needs you to be you. There's urgency. And this idea, this phrase, if it's going on, well, what can I really do about it? That complacency, that disempowering. I mean, think about the body. You were given a spine to be empowered, right? You were given this brain, why? To separate yourself from other species. I mean, the great thing about animals is that if you look at a giraffe, why was a giraffe given that neck? Or why was the elephant given that trunk? We all kind of look the same in that regard, but we have that distinction, which is our natural resource. And it might not be so obvious. So for me, it's like I always want to invite myself first, always. But I invite us to go a little deeper with this question of fear. Because fear represents the winter, the water element. And we're clearly in spring. It's about vision. But hang out with, did I really embrace that question in the winter? Because we want to live in harmony with the seasons, with the energy that's available to us. The seasons will usher your spiritual growth, your path, if you pay attention to it. So as we're in the spring, as we talked about this rebirth, this regeneration, sometimes take a shower at night, cleanse off your day. Why do we shower in the morning? Because we want a fresh start. That connection to water. Water is going to nourish the wood, right? So you can be out there in the world. So one of the things I want to ask you is, well, let me say, when I started to think about all the great people I admire, I was at a lecture last night at 1440 with Esther Perel, who's an amazing woman who speaks about relationships. So if you don't know her, please look her up. But the most great accomplishments that I've seen from my mentors are achieved by people that didn't know what they were doing. They struggled, they worked hard, and the simple ones are, the light bulb. But what if they gave up? What if they had insecurities? What if they didn't think they were enough? What if they had inadequacies? What is that genius in you? Because I'm genuinely interested. Because I know that we are born here in this given time for a purpose, a collective purpose. And it really is part of the process of why we come here, to continue to get out of our own way. Right? To continue to get out of our own way. the ego. I was thinking about the first time that we learned how to ride a bike, or traveled and tried to learn a new language, or made love for the first time. You don't have a manual, but what you do is you have this internal biological rhythm that's connected to everything that is, this ethereal pulse. And that's what's so beautiful about this, is that you don't need to know the how, but you need to say yes. You need to say yes to yourself. And I will say, notice the incoming. Notice what you're choosing to inform you, because you know language is constructing the paradigm. Deepak's latest book, if you haven't read it, pick it up. It's a real nice, easy read. He was in Santa Cruz in January. He reminds us that every 2 years you have a new body. So if that's the case, you weren't even the same person you came in here with. So in 2 years, if you have a whole new physical body, do you have a whole new physical mind? A whole new emotional life? Or are you playing small? And are you holding yourself back? Because if you're living in that past, your body is not the same. So why would you be in that same feeling state? It's incongruent with the natural cycles of the universe. So that's the good news. So Phyllis Bottom, who's one of my favorites, says there's 2 ways of meeting difficulties. If you're at a place in your life where you're feeling difficulty, you can either alter the difficulty or alter yourself. So incoming toxic, media or people or experiences or thoughts. So it's either you change your situation or you change yourself. That's the power of it. So I really like data because I'm a scientist at heart. And one of the things I've read recently is that courage is significantly correlated with high-functioning individuals. It means that when you develop a greater courage for life, you have more clarity, you have more energy, you have more necessity, you're productive, and you have more influence over your life. So, courage can revolutionize your life. It is the cornerstone habit. If you look at the brain, there's grooves, right? Deeply ingrained grooves, because we have the same thoughts every other day. If you're at a forest and you go to work the same path, you're going to dig a path, right? So courage, and then, is creating a new habit. Kind of simple. So what does that look like for day-to-day? How do we make this practical? How do we have this land? I speak up for myself even when it's hard. I respond quickly to life's challenges and emergencies rather than to avoid them. I often take action despite feeling fear. I have the courage to express who I really am. I have the courage to do the right thing. That's a big one in today's world. I often act outside my comfort zone. Mark Twain says, courage is the resistance to fear, mastery of fear, but not absence of fear, right? So for me, the ironic thing is, in Chinese medicine, you are associated with an element. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a 5-element practitioner. I really encourage it. But I'm the gallbladder in Chinese medicine. That's my personality type. And it's all about finding the courage. So that's going to look different for everybody, because it might look more like anxiety or worry or fear or lack of self-worth, right? Bitterness, resentment, all the different emotional realms that we play. But in the end, right, we have one continuum of love and fear, right? So if we want to step more towards into loving ourselves so we can even love others, then it's being courageous, the call to courage. Someone's getting a call right now for courage. Pick up the phone. So one of the first books I read in Chinese medicine school was Pema Chodron. And I know that some of us are familiar with her. The Places That Scare You, A Guide to Fearlessness. Sometimes even going into a bookstore, reading the titles sometimes is enough. But I just feel honestly that when Rev D asked me to speak today, and she told me it was the call to courage, I said yes. Because you're the only one that can assess your state, your emotional state, your flow state, your mental state, your social state, your health, how you are in the world, and if in your ability to give your gifts. Our ability to be present and to receive is one of the blessings of being a human and part of the human experience. Because yes, we enter and we might leave alone. But everybody knows what a joyous journey it is to be with people. I know for me, this life, this inner light community is such a blessing. It is such a blessing, each one of us. Because when you are, when you're practicing that place of being present, I'm able to receive something from every single one of you. And in that moment, in that connection, I don't know about you, but it's when I can receive. And in a world today, we tend to give more. It's being productive, it's doing more. It's creating these social stories on social media. But I would ask for you to just chew on this for the week. Sit with this idea of, could I scan my life? And are there places where I could be more courageous? There's an exercise that we learned in the practitioner training program where you ask yourself the same question 17 times. So the next time that you're not acting, you're reacting in a situation, you're noticing that something comes up. Remember, this is your visual field. Something comes in. Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to go to this party? Whatever it is. How does it land? When you want to make change in your life, you just slow down a little bit. Going at life at a 7 or 8, just go at a 5 or 6. So you have a better visual perspective. So when something comes in, you can make an integrative, holistic decision, so it's sustainable. So as you're scanning your life this week, notice the places that you are playing small. Notice the places that fear has kind of been hanging out there. Notice the people in your life that are saying those things I mentioned. And just be with that. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to say them anything. You don't need to be right. But you get to choose on if you actually believe that. When you're not connected to yourself, it's really hard to know that I'm separate from you. When you say something long enough, you believe it. The flip side of that is, when you say something long enough, you believe it. Yeah. So let me end with this. The summer energy that's coming is going to be the full height of the sun, right? That's when we are going to be fully out to play. But you have a few more weeks of spring. And what that means for you is that spring, again, it's about vision. It's about your vision for your life. It's setting the intention and cultivating that inner knowing that I am somebody and I have something to say. I maybe have something to do. And that may start with emptying out. Spring cleaning is appropriate. It's cleaning out not just the physical stuff that you might want to give to elegant treasures, but it's the storage bins of your heart, right? So take this moment in the next few weeks to continue to delve deeper in what do I need to? It's like opening up the window and letting the fresh air go. All the points on the acupuncture points on the neck are windows to the sky points. It allows us to open up the window so you can see the possibility, right? This is the gateway to the consciousness from the heart. So as you go through the next few weeks and you think about that vision, that cultivation of you in the world, summer energy comes. And that's the time when that fire, that heat has your back for you to actually be in the world and influence yourself and others and produce. And then, of course, we go energy inward in the fall. So as we're revving up for the summer, this is the time to use the gallbladder energy for courage in the next few weeks. So I love Rev D, you know. I know she knows Taoism, but she picks the topics just on point with Taoism. I love it. So feel the gallbladder energy, love your liver, really cultivate, stand up tall. It's the wood element right now, right? And notice the places you can have power over your life on the things you can change and the things you can't change. And that's where you are flexible. So I'm honored to be here. You've been amazing in your listening. And if anything lands on you and your heart, I will be blessed. Thank you. Yeah.